It seems like there's never been a more important time for us to understand emergency preparedness and to worry about ourselves as individuals and our families. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a logo there, the 72 hours. Is your family prepared? That's a federal government slide. And what I'd like to take you through is experience of preparing my emergency kit, my personal emergency kit. So let's talk some more about the emergency preparedness thing. Anything could happen at any time. The real question is, are you ready for it? For instance, when we start talking about planning and preparedness, it's not going to wait for us. The week of May 1st through May 7th in 2016, the first week of May, which is when it always happens, was Emergency Preparedness Week nationally. Each of the provinces ran some sort of awareness program, etc. But in Alberta, there was a challenge because that's the same week that the wildfires outside Fort McMurray led to the evacuation of the city. A lot of events were canceled and things just didn't happen. And it's not that surprising overall. Disaster and emergencies can strike anytime, anywhere, is what the Alberta Emergency Management Agency's own website says. It's just going to happen. But what it does also say or point out is, what would you do and who would you depend on for the next 72 hours to stay safe? Now, why does this come down to us? It's because our emergency responders can't always get to us in the initial hours. They need that 72-hour window where we try to take care of ourselves. And that's part of what the 72-hour kit is all about. It's about taking care of ourselves. But the other thing you do have to stop and think about is who depends on you in 72. Who depends on you to be there for all of that? And it's interesting because it's a buzz phrase that was used by the Alberta government, and they ran a competition for people to put together videos, how to, do the whole who depends on you in 72. But it also became a buzzword that the local municipalities used to drive forward awareness, and they've been doing this for some time now. On the right-hand side of this screen, you will see what's a Google search return on the phrase who depends on you in 72. The geofencing function within Google shows me mostly Alberta responses because that's where I am. Try it yourself and see what you get in your own neighborhoods, in your own areas, what comes up. Now, as I said, they ran a competition, and here's one of the winners. This is not mine. This is one of the winning vids. of the jurisdictions has their own awareness videos available, as it seems to be a great channel to reach so many of our people. If you click on this one, the Ontario Emergency Preparedness video, it's pretty cool. But I'm not going to do that for you tonight. Do it on your own. Okay? But the messaging here is that it's time to get prepared. Is your family prepared? Right? To do this, what you need to do is you need to go out and get real advice. Find some real advice. You can actually go hang out at the local fire hall. They will have a lot of this information. But there is a real wealth of information that will help you get prepared. You just have to check. Check with your regional, check with your federal, and check with your municipal authorities, and look for their publications. Check out their websites. All right? The federal one, that's the Public Safety Canada website, is the getprepared.gc.ca. The Alberta one is the Alberta Emergency Management Agency.ab.ca. And the kinds of things that you can lay your hands on include print guides, emergency preparedness guides. This one is from the city of St. Albert, and then there's all these others that are federal or provincial in nature. So there's a lot of information out there. It's just a matter of starting to pull it together. So what are you going to do? Well, the first thing is to know the risks. You have to understand what your environment is going to do. And then you make a plan. Then you pull together your 72-hour kit. So as you start working this through, start thinking about it. What are you doing? Okay, well, one of the questions you have to ask yourself up front is, will I shelter in place or will I evacuate? There are so many different factors there, and we can't really talk about that now. Then you have to ask yourself, what do I need? Have a look at the government-provided checklist to figure that out. And then once you've had a look through those checklists, try to figure out how you measure up to it. What are the hazards you need to be prepared for? And who am I preparing for? Is it just yourself, or have you got an extended family? And then, how prepared are you? What are we preparing for? Fast list from the federal guides. And it's interesting, and there's nothing really surprising there. But the identified hazards and emergencies where I am actually are a smaller subset, not that much smaller, of the larger one. Earthquake, flood, severe storms, wind, rain, or snow, yes. Tornadoes, yes, absolutely. Wildfires, we've seen that one. I'm in Alberta. Power outages, water supply contamination and outage, basically utility failure. Chemical releases from the big processing plants in the neighborhood. And then there is the question of pandemic. There is always the question and threat of pandemic. And when they happen, we're going to find ourselves working with the emergency management people and responders who are going to give us guidance as to whether we're going to shelter in place or evacuate. The terminology there, shelter in place versus evacuate, that's a larger conversation than the one we want to have today. But essentially, shelter in place means stay at home, stay in your office, your place of work, and that's it. Evacuate means move to a place where the emergency management people need you to be to make sure that you're safe. And that's an interesting piece of this puzzle. They're working towards your safety and security needs in a lot of the guidance they're providing. And safety and security needs, well, what is that? It's about how safe are you? What's your shelter? Security of the person, security of your stuff, your personal health, and the stability of the community around you. That's the big thing. But these are the things that have to be answered to make the shelter in place versus evacuate decision appropriately. And that's what they're working on. And these things are basically starting to pull down from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The next piece, think about it, it's physiological, I can't even say it, physiological needs and your 72-hour emergency kit. There's 4 basic things. You want water, food, shelter, warmth, which is basically warm and dry. It's about being comfortable. That's what you're looking for. Another piece of that puzzle, when you take the safety and security and the physiology, then goes to another piece of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is your social needs and your belonging. It's about your community, your family, your friends, your community, all of those relationships. And as you're planning your 72-hour kit, you need to think about that. Can you share what you have? How many people are going to start looking to you for help? How many will come to you as the go-to person? And better still, how will you stay in touch with them? What kind of gear have you got for that? Cell phone, tablet that's cellularly enabled? Doesn't matter, right? But once you get to that point, you then have to think about, what do you got for a cell phone charger? And do you have a radio to remain connected with the greater world, to help understand where things are, what things are? You can't always just rely on your cell phone. So you've got to do these things to stay in touch with your friends. Now, within the planning phase of all of this, there is the emergency plan. Public Safety Canada has a brilliant tool on their website for helping you develop that plan. And what it does is it takes you through 8 steps that starts with identifying your escape routes from your home, your office, and even out of your neighborhood. Then it gets into the next step, which is about establishing the meeting places. Where do you find your friends and family? How do you make all of this stuff go? So making the plan is a huge component, and it fits back into what we were talking about with the safety, security, and then the belonging and the societies that you're part of. And once you've got that stuff sorted through and made some sense of that, and you have the plan, that's when you then start putting together your kit, right? And from the government sites, we can then go through and do a number of different things. But the big thing is, start the checklist, use the government sites to derive those. And here's an example. These are the big buckets: food and water, bedding and clothing, light and fuel, equipment and utility items, first aid, your medications and personal hygiene items. And then, unfortunately, no matter where we are and what happens, you always got to have your personal documents, you have to have money, and then there's other personal items. One lovely thing that the federal government website suggests is that you really should put small toys and games into your emergency kit. Something to play with, something to take your mind off a dark time. And the actual quote, they can provide some comfort and entertainment during a stressful time. So let's look at our food and water situation. Now, what you're looking for or looking to set up is a 72-hour or a 3-day supply of non-perishables that you can store somewhere in your home to grab as you need to, with consideration, bearing in mind of what's needed and what's desirable for both a shelter-in-place environment and an evacuation. So, right off the bat, you're going to start thinking about stuff like protein, granola bars, and liquid meal replacements. And these are photographs of mine, and you see I maintain a number of different things, not the least of which for a protein is actually I carry a jar of peanut butter, which is not always the best thing to have because of the prevalence of peanut allergies, but it's there. The protein bars, and I'm not going to go into brand names here, but I do have them, right? And one of the things you should be looking at here is starting to realize how much of this might already be in your cupboards, right? And what do you want to do about that, right? One of the things is that you can't, as you're planning, just assume you've got most of this stuff. You need to augment. You need to get out there and figure out what you're missing. So we have our trail mix, our granola bars, right? You know, all of that stuff, our canned meats and whatever. I also have beans, and I have a series of, back up. I have a series of Tetra Packs that I replace quite often. That's full of my juice, so I've got it. But I also maintain, and it's in the garage where I can get at it very quickly, 2 10-liter jugs of water. I change the water once a month, and with that I also have water bottles so I can decant and carry and share. From a bedding and clothing perspective, this is my kit, right, where you can see it. Now, what you can't see is my change of clothing. I keep it wrapped up in the sleeping bag. It helps to minimize what I have to move, what I have to carry, what I have to pack. But I have the poncho here, I have an extra blanket here, I have the tent. Oops, that's twice I've done that. I have a tent, and I have a light shelter that I use for all of this stuff. So that part's covered. Then we get into light. How do we see? And it's something that is very important, that we have a way to see things. You don't want to be in the dark during a disaster or emergency, so you want to get in there and get some stuff done. And this is my gear. You can see, lighter, but I also have the waterproof matches in case the lighter ever fails. I have candles, I have spare batteries, I have a selection of flashlights, a lantern, and a hand crank flashlight. And that's not the only one I have, because I have another one that also feeds power to my cell phone. And it's actually on this page, which is my equipment and utility items. Here is my hand crank flashlight that will take a USB cable and will charge a cell phone. But also in here I have dishes and utensils. This is a backpack picnic kit with everything in it that I need and absolutely must have. I have a folding shovel, axe, well, it's more of a hatchet than an axe, pocket knife, rope, duct tape, whistle so I can get noticed. And then for my basic tools, I carry a massive Swiss Army knife. That's if I have to go light. I do have, in the back of my vehicles, I have toolkits as well. The next thing to think about, and arguably it could have been thought about first, is first aid, your meds, and any other personal items. So the first aid kit, I have a highly robust one, but I have augmented it with Band-Aid kits, bandages, as well as steri strips, whatever, because the one thing you don't want to do is get out there and not be able to treat even a minor cut, because that's where you're going to get into trouble. That's where you'll end up with blisters. I have my meds, all of the meds. I have kid related meds and things just to be fun. And my cleaning supplies, my toilet paper, and my garbage bags. And this is, I've always found invaluable, especially when I'm in the backcountry or camping, and they're baby wipes. They're perfect. They're absolutely perfect for keeping things clean when you don't have enough water. The other thing that's in my emergency kit are brand new toothbrushes and a tube of toothpaste, so that I can at least try to feel human after all is said and done. And I'm sure you recognize these bottles here. These are my 3 days worth of prescriptions for my household. Now, the other thing that I tend to carry, I have a waterproof bag that I have. I know exactly where it is. I can lay my hands on it immediately. It's my documents and money. Right? And I'm not going to give you a shot of this for personal reasons, but there you go. So once you've got this, you have to make sure, are you sure you have it all? You may believe you have everything you need in your home right now, but ask yourself, do you? Is it organized? Is it accessible? How long is it going to take you to pull it all together? If somebody told you you had to evacuate in the next 15 minutes, can you get your family photos and everything else you need in that 15 minutes? Think about it. So we've talked about it all, right? And we've started to put it together. We've gone through the discovery phase. What do we know? Where is it? How do we get it? Right? Go out and buy or acquire the stuff we don't have. Get the new stuff. Get something better. Get something that works better, right? And then consolidate it. Put it all in one place. Easy to move. Easy to get at. Now, the pile of stuff in this photo you would think is not easy to move. Well, what I don't have the photo of is the little hand truck that I use to pick up the bin underneath to move stuff around quickly. It's a nice to have. But trying to get all of this stuff together and get it organized, I've had years of acquiring bits and pieces from camping and from raising my children so that I'm there. There is another solution that also does not take up nearly as much room as this, which is valuable for people who live in tighter spaces than I do with my family. And that is acquire a kit, buy something. A commercially prepared 72-hour kit. I did this just to see, just to understand what they were like. And the one I got was from a company called 72 Hours, and it came in a single backpack. And that's a photo of it. And when you open it up, it has all this great looking stuff in it. It has a first aid kit. So now I've got more first aid kits than I know what to do. It has bags full of supplies, Ziploc bags, reusable, which are great. Right? And this one, which I'll discuss in a moment, and then all of our tools and utility pieces. This is the tools and utilities laid out for you. There is a tent. There's a pair of work gloves. There is a 3-wick emergency candle, a variation on the Swiss Army knife, cord, duct tape. This is waterproof matches, another whistle, and look at this, drinking water. These are little sachets of drinking water that are good for 5 years. There is enough in these 2 envelopes or 2 Ziploc bags for 2 people for 3 days. Also with this is a ration kit, 2 of them actually. There's one over here as well. And these are the same sort of things that are used in lifeboats on the ocean. The other one that I really like was the emergency sleeping bag, and this is a poncho here, and these are your hygiene wipes. So it's pretty interesting, the stuff in here. But the other one that I'd like to draw your attention to is over here on the right hand side, a 5-in-1 winding radio. It's a hand crank radio, so you can get the news. It also has a flashlight built into it, and it will charge cell phones. So find one of those. I recommend it strongly. But this is the kit you get. It's a good, solid kit. You can get them in various places. The Red Cross sells them. They're commercially available. You can order them through Amazon. You can order them through Costco. Don't delay. If you're having trouble putting together a kit, buy one. So in summary, what I'm really saying is get prepared. That's it. Just get prepared. Know the risks. Make the plan. Get the kit. Thank you.